There is something that serial killers all have in common, aside from actually killing people. They are horny. In fact, they are horny little devils. To make matters worse, serial killers are not really in touch with their sexuality. And some of them, well, they have some weird fetishes and proclivities. From Norman Bates, a recluse who felt the urge to kill any woman he was remotely attracted to Pearl, a demented and elderly woman who still was looking to get down and dirty, to Dre, a woman battling with illness and sexual repression. After all, it was Sigmund Freud who believed that every man secretly wanted to have sex with his mother.
He thinks that I'm attracted to you sexually.
These serial killers would have been A-okay if they had just gotten laid.
Besides, it ain't exactly something I want to advertise around town. You know how some people can get when it comes to sex.
Today we understand that sex, more specifically speaking, sexual energy plays a huge role in who we are and who we're attracted to. After all, sexual energy is the basis of virtually all relationships. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the downsides of sexual energy and how sexual repression can cause a person to go mad and kill others in a fit of rage. So please stay tuned. Thank goddess we're well into 2023 and we're starting to get some female serial killers being portrayed on television. The good thing about the new and modern serial killer is that the writers understood what made the male serial killer so compelling. Norman Bates from the 1960s classic movie Psycho is perhaps one of the first, if not the most famous serial killers of all time. Come on now, everything about him was creepy.
You have something that most girls don't have.
I have.
And there's not a name for it, but it's something that puts a person at ease.
Marion Crane, a woman fleeing from her hometown of Arizona with $40,000 of stolen money in tow, checks into the Bates Motel, only to find out that Mr. Bates was a peeping Tom, and a cross-dresser, and a man who had multiple personalities, and a man who couldn't keep it in his pants. Norman Bates was so far removed from reality that he killed people in the guise of his mother. Norman was particularly fond of pretty girls, yet Mr. Bates was also engaging in his own little battle.
Or do I have to tell her because you don't have the guts? Huh, boy? You have the guts, boy?
Shut up! Shut up!
With two distinctive personalities fighting to take the wheel. There was the timid and passive Norman who wouldn't hurt a fly. Then there was his mother, an old, cantankerous woman who would kill at the drop of the hat.
No, actually, I'm not gonna do that because you think I'm crazy.
To think that all these murders and killings could have been avoided if Norman Bates would have just gotten laid. Yes, it's true, we are all a little irritable when we haven't had sex in a while. However, sexual energy isn't just about the physical act of sex. The mystics believe that sexual energy governs virtually all forms of relationships. It's best to think about sexual energy as a fuel source.
It's a gas. We're just not afraid to admit it. Queer, straight, black, white. It's all disco.
Your car needs gasoline in order to run, and your body needs food and water in order to function properly. So in order for you to have a thriving relationship, you need to have a good source of sexual energy. If you don't have a good source of sexual energy, then your relationships are in turn going to suffer. We as children learn about relationships and sexual energy from our parents. The bonds that we create with them set the tone for our future encounters, our future love affairs, even our future business endeavors. I'm sure that we've all heard the expression that we tend to marry our parents. Sadly, if we've had bad relationships with our parents, then we tend to have bad relationships in general. Worse, there are some people who cut themselves off completely. They lock themselves up and forbid themselves from having human connections. As a result, they lose the fuel that they need to survive and thrive. Over time, the sexual energy becomes very stale as they begin to suffer from sexual repression. When sexual energy is repressed for long periods of time, it comes out in grotesque and perverted ways.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
In cases of a serial killer, they begin to idolize certain people and fantasize about certain events, thus losing their grip on reality.
Look at me like you looked at her. What? I can show you what I'm capable of.
Stop. I don't want to see it.
Norman Bates fancied beautiful women, yet he was afraid of them at the same time. Pearl wanted to get down and dirty, even though she was elderly and physically incapable of doing so. Dre wanted to get the nausea and couldn't really connect with anyone because of her secret crush and fascination with the superstar.
Attraction is out of our control. It ain't healthy keeping those feelings locked away inside.
It's safe to say that serial killers aren't getting affection, love, and intimacy in the real world. So as a coping mechanism, they create a fantasy world where they are loved and cherished and adored. As I stated in my other videos, the mind, although very complex, can't tell the difference between a thought that is real from one that is imagined. The mind reacts just the same. So if you think about love, your body is going to pump out all those feel-good hormones associated with falling in love. And if you're aroused, well, your mind and body respond whether you have a partner or not. Living in a fantasy world is mostly innocent. We all do it. We all daydream. We all fantasize. Sadly, people become addicted to the fantasy world, so much so that they lose touch with reality. Pearl was infatuated with a young, beautiful woman and thought that she had a chance with her. Norman Bates truly believed that it was his mother who murdered innocent women and not him. Trey believed that all the killing was worth it just to be held and loved by Naja. There's an old saying about addictions: the higher you go, the harder you fall. This is why addicts would do anything from coming back down. In many cases, they would rather die than be sober. So they kill to protect the fantasy. They kill to protect the illusion. They kill to protect the imaginary relationships that they have conjured up in their minds.
Put that down. Now back up. Back up.
A serial killer coming down from reality is 10 times worse than heartbreak. The pain is primal and triggers innate feelings of abandonment and rejection. So we are starting to see more characters like Norman Bates on TV, taking on different sizes and genders and complexion. Art, in my opinion, is a reflection of life, and these new serial killers reflect our own sexual repressions and frustration. We live in a digital age, and now more than ever, it's more difficult to connect. Instead, we get lost in the fantasy world of social media and streaming services without really connecting to real people. Now, will we turn into serial killers? Probably not. But we are going to turn into some lonely, horny little devils. This was another video essay by The Modern Mystic, and please support this channel by buying the Voodoo Love series right now.